Scared? I don't think, that's not a word to be used. I mean, petrified. It was not easy. It was hell.
Just like the many service members of World War II, Bob Terreberry had a rather humble beginning. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, Bob Terreberry stayed out of trouble to the best of his abilities. However, being a young man in such a big city rarely leads to good behaviors.
I grew up in the city of Chicago, on the northwest side. And we had gangs, but we didn't call them gangs, we called them social clubs. And it's just like today, we had our squabbles with one another, but we didn't shoot one another. None of us had guns. It could be we weren't big enough to carry guns, or the guns were bigger than we were. So, I mean, it's not like today where you just say something wrong to somebody and they shoot you. You said something wrong, you got the shit beat out of you.
As with many people of the greatest generation, Bob Terreberry remembers the exact moment when he heard of the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. This event would propel his military career as one of the many unsung heroes of World War II.
I'll tell you what I was doing. I was laying on the front room floor, listening to the radio, and you know what I was listening to? WGN. And you know what they were doing? They were reading the comics. So I had the comics spread out in front of me, and word for word. My dad looked at me, he said, "Now what are you going to do, Bob?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I going to do? What are you going to do?" Dad was worried about who was going to go represent the family. He said, "I can't go because I'm too old." I said, "Okay, Dad, I'll go." So World War II comes to South Sea. I'll go out there. I will be your hero.
Due to the massive demilitarization in the United States before its involvement in World War II, the months following Pearl Harbor consisted of the armed forces pumping out service members at maximum capacity. At Great Lakes Naval Base in Illinois, the recruits had less than the normal 90 days of basic training. Some were even shipped out to the fleet with less than a month's worth of training.
I reported to Great Lakes on January 6th of 1942, and I took the oath on January 6th. February 1st of 1942, I was on the USS Enterprise. And it took us almost 10 days to get from Great Lakes to Hawaii to get on the ship. So you know how much boot camp I had. I had a half-hour mess cooking, I had a half-hour messenger, I had a half-hour signal. The only one I didn't have any fun at was when they gave me a gun and they took us out on a grid and told us to march. I learned how to run with the rifle over my head. Yep, I didn't know my left foot from my right foot. Every time I left, and they were in the rifle, and then if I slowed down a little bit, they were right behind me. Get going. So that was my experience with the rifle. I was what they call a mess runner because I was the fastest guy in the company, and they'd sound mess call, and one guy from the company had to go into the mess hall, and the master at arms at the mess hall would say, "All right, 55, 62, 71, go get your ship," and I'd have to run back to the barracks. Chow down. They had to fall in, and we marched over for breakfast. They couldn't go until I went. Till I told them to go eat, they couldn't go. I mean, that's what I did in boot camp. I was the mess runner. Good job, because I always got to eat first.
After his quick processing at Great Lakes, Bob Terreberry was sent to the fleet as a Petty Officer Third-Class ship fitter. Here, he would spend the next 3 years of his life within the steel bulkheads of the USS Enterprise.
She was 803 feet long, and that's a football field and a half. And she was 84 feet wide. And I said to myself, my God, this is a big ship. It was a big ship. You don't realize it's like an apartment building. You take an apartment building and turn it on its side. Go to compartment. It's a long way. Then they transferred me to the C&R department. C&R is what they call construction and repair. And construction and repair, all you do is daily you go to work. One day you'd be changing rubber in hatches. welding this up, rebuilding this, repairing this, replacing this. You were a maintenance man. So they made me a third-class fitter, ship fitter. My job in the ship fitter shop was air testing. Have you ever seen a ship and how a ship is constructed? Got all of the voids down on the bottom, and this is what keeps it afloat. And we'd put an air test on a void, and you have to hold so many pounds for so many minutes. If we didn't, we had to go in the void and find out where the leak was. If there was a leak in there, we had to take tools in there to fix them or weld them, one or the other.
This is not a drill. This is not a drill. General quarters. General quarters. All hands man your battle station.
When the call to general quarters was sounded throughout the Enterprise, every member of the crew had to stop their current actions and rush to their designated station. During general quarters, the ship fitters of the construction and repair department were tasked with the management of a 5-inch, 38 caliber dual-purpose gun, firing a massive 54-pound projectile at 15 rounds a minute with a maximum range of 18,200 yards. This was the main defensive cannon of the USS Enterprise and required up to 15 sailors to operate properly. Some of the positions that the dual-purpose gun required were sight setter and sight checker, whose job was to align the sights of the gun towards the target and set on either side of the weapon. Other sailors handled the 54-pound projectile. The powderman inserted the correct amount of powder into the casing. The fuse setter selected the desired explosion time, and the hot shellman carried the spent casings to the bulkhead where they were out of the way of the gun functioning and the crew. To keep all of these sailors in check, a high-ranking enlisted sailor was tasked as the gun captain and kept order amongst the chaos of battle.
We got up there and they said, well, you're going to be this, you're going to be this, you're going to be this, you're going to be this. I don't know what the hell to do with food. And this is the way it was. Now, all of the point setter and they had earphones on with big steel hats, you know. They says, okay, Bobby, we're going to try you at this. So they put me over there. The friggin' gun go off, the helmet would go up, the earphones would go up, I'd go up, I'd come down, the earphones would come down, the helmet would come down. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm turning, and I'm supposed to keep two things matched, okay? And it's a good thing they had spikes on the flight deck to keep the gun from fire, because I'd have blown the shit out of the flight deck. I'm not kidding. If I had where the crosshairs were supposed, they were supposed to be like that. Man, they were like that. They were like. But that was because of the damn gun. Every time the gun fired, these things. They go, well, you can't do that. I still can't do that. Well, maybe you can. Well, the Kansas powder were heavy, and they were about that long, solid brass. Yeah, they handed it to the guy that was up on a gun with the powderman, and he'd take and throw it in the breech. I get the powder can so high and drop it. Yo! That didn't work. So he says, no, that ain't gonna work. Then he said, well, we'll load the shells. I wasn't fast enough, and when I go to try and put the damn shell up there, I didn't go too far, drop it on a gun, or mess everything up. I screwed the whole thinking. He can't do that either. What are we going to give Bob to do on that job? They try to make a hot shellman out of me. They come out of the shop, bam, I got it, and I'm up against a bulkhead. I'm like, so that didn't work. I said, well, put him on the edge of the flight deck, and he can count the shells that we fire.
The USS Enterprise was the recipient of 20 battle stars, the most out of any United States ship in World War II. Out of the many battles that the Enterprise was a part of, the Battle of Midway is arguably the most famous. Occurring 6 months after Pearl Harbor, Admiral Yamamoto of the Japanese Imperial Navy still had a burning desire to sink the aircraft carriers that he had missed during their initial attack on the United States. His plan was to attack the island of Midway, causing the Americans to rush to the island to defend it. However, the American fleet would spring the trap that Yamamoto had planned. This ambush would have crushed the American fleet and secured Japanese dominance in the Pacific. Ironically, his plan was compromised when American intelligence officers discovered the fleet codes of the Japanese ships. With this newfound information, American Admiral Chester W. Nimitz devised a counteroffensive. He placed any available U.S. carriers into position to surprise the Japanese as they moved up to their initial positions for the airstrikes upon Midway Island.
During the Battle of Midway, the pilot landed his plane, got out and he started kicking the plane and hitting the plane and calling it all kinds of dirty names. Hitting it, and the gun captain, or the plane captain, got a hold of me. You touch that plane again, I'm gonna whack you. And he said, "Why? What are you hitting it for?" He said, "Goddamn thing." He said, "I got behind this Japanese, I pulled the guns, nothing. They jammed, they all jammed." Gun captain looked at me, the plane captain looked at me, he said, "What's the matter with you, man?" So he reached in his pocket and pulled out a tool and opened up the compartments that had the ammunition in them. There wasn't a clip, nothing left in any of them. He said, "You dummy, no wonder you couldn't fire, you didn't have any bullets left." Now he says, "Apologize to the plane." As plane captain made the guy say, I'm sorry. And he went down and he reloaded the plane, refueled it, rearmed it, and he took off again. But that's how those plane captains loved their airplanes. And we loved the pilots. Ship's crew worshipped those pilots. They were crazy. But without them, we wouldn't be here.
After 4 days of intense battle, the Americans lost the USS Yorktown, a destroyer, 150 aircraft, and 307 service members were killed. Compared to the Japanese casualties of all 4 of its carriers, 1 heavy cruiser, 248 aircraft, and a total of 2,057 service members were killed. This was the first naval battle that the Japanese had lost since 1863 and showed the Japanese that the Americans were committed in finishing the fight.
Japanese were tough, but we were tougher. They'd send 15 planes over, we'd send 30 back. They'd send 15 more over, we'd send 30 back. And even though we were secured from general quarters, it'd be 11 o'clock at night. General quarters to sound. Disrupt your whole night. Because it used to take us 15 minutes to get the ship ready for general quarters to sound it. But it would take you 2 hours to get to sleep after. They just bugged you, you know? We used to call it pea call. Here they come again. Time to get up and pee. After the Battle of Midway, they put up on a bulkhead, rear seat men wanted. In other words, the guy that with a machine gun behind you, the dive bomber pilot. Stupid. Puts his name up there. Only, like I say, I was only 5'6", 5'5", didn't weigh 200 pounds or 150 pounds. It was beautiful for one of those planes. They took off when they went over an island someplace, and it seemed like every second or third plane that landed, when the SPDs, this was, first aid would run out there with a stretcher and pull the rear seat man out and put him in the stretcher and take him below. And boy, I saw that, I went over and I scratched my name off of this. I went right through the board, the blackboard, the bullboard, and right up to the bulkhead, scratching my name out of there, boy. On no part of it. No part of it. Those guys were crazy. Nice bunch of guys. They didn't live too long. They might have been 18, 19, and 20 when they started. There were very few of them that got to be 30. I don't know how the other fellows feel about it, but it was a sad, sad day. And this guy snuck in all by himself. Nice sunshiny day. Got up over us and turned over and came right down. And we didn't see him till he got to be about 500 feet above the ship. When you saw him, you went underneath a carpet. Call him the screw hole. Yeah, we did. The bombs, the 40 millimeter shells were exploding and going off in this locker. And man, it was a hard one to get to because you couldn't get to it off the flight deck because that was all screwed up. So Jay come up and he's, Bobby, you got to get in the locker and do something. I said, yeah, I know. How the hell am I going to get up there? He said, well, if you go through under the flight deck, we had construction bars, you know. He says, can you get up there and chinny across? I said, I can try. So he says, all right, now back by the parachute locker, there's a file cabinet. If you push the file cabinet away, there's a door under. You never told me? I told you there's way in and way out of everything. So I chinnied across the flight deck, underneath the flight deck, over to where the parachute locker was at. I got down, I got in, and then we had just installed new sprinkler systems in the gun in the powder locker. And the valves were set, so all you had to do was touch it with your hand, and the sprinkler system went on. They had what they called sluice valves in there. The water will go one way, but you can not lock it and stop it and go the other way. And this is what they did with the new sprinkler system. So I just reached up and got a hold of the thing and nothing but white steam for about 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes. I made my way over to the hatch that led out to the gun mount. And there was a lieutenant in there and myself. And when we come out, got a hold of the lieutenant and says, what's your name? And he told him, I come out, we're going to recommend you for the Silver Star. He said, hey, that's beautiful, thank you, goodbye. And took off. Went around, did my what I was supposed to be doing.
Unfortunately, these moments of heroism were overshadowed by the fear of death. This fear would sink into the crew of the Enterprise and hang like a plague for the rest of their lives.
Scared? I don't think, that's not a word to be used. I mean, petrified. My battle station in the R Division was on the flight deck. Right level with the flight deck, okay? And there was a big blower motor. There was just enough room underneath that sucker to get. I got underneath it, and I swear to God, if I could get a hold of the deck that I was laying on. You ever see a screen door where a dog has been jumping on it and he takes his fingernails and puts grooves in it? I swear to God, that steel deck would have had grooves in it where I was trying to dig to get down to the deck below when them cannons started going. And we took 29 bomb hits. 29 times we got hit with bombs. I was sitting on a bunk. If you ever seen the bunks aboard ship, put the book with you, I'd be able to show it. They triced up and they were layered. I was sitting in the middle. Taglioni was sitting here. seed was sitting there. Is dead. Seed is dead. I come to, I'm walking across the hangar deck, and I have no shoes on. Killed him, blew my shoes off, did not wound me in any way other than the fact it scared the shit out of me. And I'm walking across the hangar deck, and my feet are on. I look down, and I had no shoes on. So I fell to my knees right there, and I'm not kidding you. I talked to God. I talked to him, man, thanking him for pulling me through this. And I'm not joshing you, I'm not kidding you. I actually, and I swear to God that the man answered me. Because he took care of me after that. He was like a shining star.
This was not the only time that Mr. Terreberry had to face death. Even during times when the Enterprise was not in battle, sailors who lost their nerve or focus for 1 second took the chance of catastrophic mistakes. These accidental deaths were just as stressful to the crew as were the deaths from battle, and became taxing to the remaining sailors.
We got hit. The compartment was pretty big, size of this classroom. This kid's name was O'Malley. And he was a first-class electrician, so he knew better. With 6 inches of water in this compartment, we had a big fuse box on the bulkhead. And he's come walking in, and he knew he wasn't supposed to do this. He opened up one of those boxes and put his hand inside, and the next thing you know, he was sailing right across the compartment. On the bulkhead on the other side, there was a cut where the bomb had made a hole, and you had a shrapnel hole in there, and he hung up. He hung up on it. He was dead. But he was an electrician, and you knew better, especially when you're standing in a foot of water. Well, it wasn't easy getting up, because we get up in the morning and sit down and have breakfast, and you're sitting across me for 4 months. 4 months, every day, the same thing. Dinner, you're sitting across me. All of a sudden, one day comes along, and you're not there anymore. What happened to him? He went off the fantail yesterday. Get killed. And that was the hard part about the whole thing. You become friends with somebody or a group of guys that get together like a gang, 4 or 5 guys, and every time you went on liberty, you'd go on liberty together, you get drunk together, you'd fight together. But there came that morning when you go to breakfast and you ain't there anymore. And you ain't gonna be there anymore. You're not in the hospital. You're not in sick bay. You were deep 6. Deep 6, and they put you in a canvas and put the shell between your legs and price it up. Say, God bless America. People. That was the hard part about the whole thing, is not seeing your buddies again. On aboard ship, and this is any ship, and if any sailor ever tells you it's any different, you became my brother. I mean, I don't care whether you were green, Greek, Jew, whatever you were my brother. my life depended upon you to do what you were supposed to do when we hit general quarters. I mean, right up until the day that I left that ship to come back to Chicago, I felt that way.
As more and more of his fellow sailors passed away, the effects of war began to wear down on Mr. Terreberry. Because of the concern that he would not be able to continue with his role in battle, he was assigned to a chaplain who would speak to Mr. Terreberry one-on-one.
I would not go back up on this gun. So they assigned a priest to me. And I had to go talk to this priest every day. And we sit there and we talk and we talk and we talk. And after about 6 weeks of this, priest sat down with me, he got a hold of my hand, and he said, "Now Bob, get on your knee." I got on my knee. He said, "We're going to talk to one another. Man to man." He says, "You're doing fine. You're doing a good job in getting yourself turned around and reacclimated to life. But the one thing I want to tell you right now, and you can tell your kids this, you can tell anybody this. This is going to be our last session here. And he said, I want you to remember one thing." I said, "Yeah, what's that?" He says, "Don't ever be afraid to die. Just be ready." And I remembered that all these years. He had tears in his eyes and I had tears in my eyes. But he says to me, "Don't ever be afraid to die. Just be ready." And you can believe this if you want. I don't care whether you do or you don't. I'm ready.
America waited out World War II's last tense hours. At the White House, President Truman, State Secretary Burns, and Cordell Hull stood by for the momentous surrender message from the Japanese. Radio men, sound and camera crews of worldwide newsreels kept vigil with Washington reporters. Then, after tantalizing hours of rumors and guesses, came the President's historic announcement, August 14th, 1945.
I have received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State on August 11th. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan. In the reply, there is no qualification.
The greatest news story of all time, final unconditional surrender with the whole world waiting to celebrate.
We cheered. I cheered. Everybody cheered. We were in Bremerton when it happened, the shipyard in Bremerton. And we were on Liberty. And we went downtown Bremerton. The guy was standing on the corner and he had 2 bottles of King's. Now you know what King's is? King's is 90 proof booze, alcohol. And he had 2 bottles. And he had them up in the air. He said, "I'll take $20 a bottle." And he had $40 in his hand so fast. I think he's still sitting there. What the hell, where did this come from? Because I had the 2 bottles of King. And we sat up all night and we drank Kings. And we were very, very thankful and happy and sober and hungover and sick, but it was all over. And we were very happy about it. There were no girls around to grab and kiss. That was it. We just all over and we all hung up and got drunk and got drunk and got drunk again.
A few months after the Japanese surrendered, Mr. Terreberry went back home to Chicago. But 3 years of war changed him, and bad habits took charge of his life.
I was probably only maybe 22 years old then. I was old enough to drink and go in the bars here. And I stayed drunk for 31 days. I did. I got up in the morning and the first thing I did was take a couple bucks out of the bank, go right down to the gin mill. Till one day my mother come to me and she's, you come home sober tomorrow or you're going back to the goddamn Navy. They're gonna take care of you. I'm not gonna take care of you. And that was on a Friday and I had a job Monday. So my mother, like the Enterprise, had an awful lot to do with my living. Well, it's just been the last 15 years that I've been able to talk about it. Now I've got 4 kids. And I think 3 out of the 4 don't know what I went through. And 3 of the 4 will never know what I went through. It was not easy. It was not easy. It was hell. Every day was different. Every day when you heard that bugle wake you up in the morning, or you were standing on watch, you thank the good Lord for another day. It's a prayer every day. And I'm willing to bet you that the 3.5 years I was out there, I must have said the Hail Marys, Our Fathers, the Acts of Contrition, every day. Some days it'd be an hour and a half, I'd say it. I've seen nothing but the Hail Marys all day, waiting for damn Bob to come through the overhead. When he got all through, I'd thank him.
It's actually very interesting how I was first assigned to Mr. Terreberry for the class. Around one of the last few days of school last year, Mr. Johnson was passing out a full list of all the available veterans and civilians for this year's class. And looking at the list, I already noticed some of the names already filled out. Was a student, but all of them were in blue pen, except for this one name that looked like it was added that day. And his name was in red, and it said Bob Terreberry, USS Enterprise, CV6, ship fitter. And I thought to myself, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I'll be able to learn from the Big E, find out what it did during World War II, find out the first-hand account of what happened on board that ship, not something that I read from a book. So as soon as I saw that name, I immediately put my name on it, and I looked at Mr. Johnson, he looked at me, and he actually kind of chuckled at me, saying, I figured you'd pick him. The first day I actually met Mr. Terreberry was in September, and I've been staring at his face for a good hour or so every day since June, and of course, I was kind of intimidated of actually meeting him for the first time, and he was actually quite a few hours late. I actually got kind of worried that he got lost or he couldn't be able to meet up with me that day, and most of the students already left by the time, but then here he comes rolling in his wheelchair, his hat saying USS Enterprise, and I figured, oh, there he is. I'm either going to get an earful or I'm going to have a good time. And actually sitting down and talking to him, and I always thought of people of the greatest generation as almost like gods among men, yet actually sitting down and talking to him, he sounded like every other guy that I know. Being raised in a military family, I had a father who served in the Navy for 8.5 years. And I had a grandfather who served in the Navy for 4 years. And I just talking to him just seemed so normal. And him swearing like every other sentence, his daughter having to tell him, "Oh, Dad, shut up, don't say that around him." And just a very good time, just realizing that I can be so relaxed with this gentleman, even though I just met him that day. And ever since then, it's just been really fun and very interesting. It's having to know someone of that many years older than me, being able to welcome myself and my family into their family, just as though as that we've known each other for so many years, even though I've known him for not even 10 months now. I guess looking back at it, the most important thing that I learned from Mr. Terreberry is, as he said during his experience with the priest, don't ever be afraid to die, just be ready. When I first read that, I was taken aback. I never really heard someone say that in that such a way, and being that serious and that compassionate about what he just said. It made me realize that these 18 years I've been on this earth, I need to live every day to the fullest. Act as though that today might be the last day, but don't think of it that way. Just do the best that I can that day and go to bed knowing that I did a good job. I just want to give a final thank you to Mr. Terreberry and his family for welcoming myself and everyone else with the Harlem Veteran Project into their family. Never would I thought to myself that this day and age that someone would be so welcoming to a group of individuals that they don't even know too much of, and being able to and being willing to help us out, give us any information that we need just to make a story. And I hope this is a darn good story, because I know the man that I wrote the story about deserves every single second of it. Thank you again, Mr. Terreberry.